Okay, so for us the question is really the crucial question for us is to embrace vigorously these notions and concepts and struggles of the commons and for the commons and through the commons, and while at the same time distinguish ourselves from interpretations and use of this concept, this way of conceiving alternatives, which capulate or facilitate the cooptation from capital, because capital has been using commons throughout the history, his own history. Capital is not only an enclosing force, as you know, it is also a force that uses commons, that write commons and use them in a variety of ways. For example, by keeping the wage down. Studies in South Africa at the earlier time, the very beginning of apartheid, of how the use of business, of commons, was precisely as a way to maintain wages down. Of course, it could be double-edged. But anyway, I just want to have a few. The point here is that this flourishing of discourses on the commons, even among the movements, in my opinion, all share a main shortcomings, and the shortcomings is this lack of class analysis within the notion of commons. Just make some example. On the cyber commons, there is a lot written on peer-to-peer networks and how peer-to-peer, the logic of peer-to-peer production, online software production, is in fact a logic which is not commodified, which has got a lot of stuff that we can learn about. But when you transfer that and those analyses, which are very interesting, into a vision of social transformation, you see the high inadequacy of that vision, in my opinion, because they conceive simply as social transformation as an abstract tendency. Okay, that's because there's been a growth in peer-to-peer production, which is based on commoning. Somehow that logic could transfer on the world of materiality as an abstract tendency, without dealing with the contradictions that Silvia and many others, for example, keep pointing out. For example, the fact that in order to produce computers, you need water, you need energy, you need raw material. Therefore, in the context of expansionary, of capitalist accumulation, that implies the expropriation of others, of communities. That implies the recreation of hierarchy and so on and so forth. There are those tendencies within the movement who think the commons are a good idea. If we only were able to convince politicians, enlightened politicians of them, how good and community nurturing are, and how effective are in the delivery of various types of productions. Again, a lot of those discourses are discourses that don't face up the reality of the class relation, and the same thing for Ostrom type of analysis, which emphasizes the economic rationality of commons, the fact that in fact commons are efficient, a context for efficient production, and therefore almost putting themselves and putting commons in competition with capitalist way. So what I'm saying is that out there is a lot of discourse on commons, and what we need urgently to do is to enter this debate, and we need to bring class within those debates, class analysis, and that is a key thing. That is part, actually, to me, as part of the question of organization. Without that centering on the question of commons as alternatives here and now, but vis-a-vis capital, and I feel it's connected to this, but just jump. I feel we are in a situation almost like when at one point in history, in the 70s, depends on or on the 80s, depending on the context, the gay movement came out. That's the thing. The coming out. It's like I feel we are at a moment in which the commoners need to come out, and with obviously struggles, but part of those struggles, the struggles are already there, but it's also like as a presence, as a presence which can debate the mainstream, which can debate mainstream society, that is visible, and that express a clear differentiation. Marx, with their own presence and struggles and visibility and discourse, marks a clear differentiation with all the other solutions that are proposed about which are also based on commons, but that they also tie commons to capitalist accumulation and capitalist growth. We need to come out in that sense, and how do we do it? I don't know. Maybe it's worthwhile to discuss it. And linked to this is the question of also, which is an old question about power and social transformation. I finished reading this last thing, and I go back to the question of the one no many yeses again. And to play around with these words, I think I like to think that the movement that has to come through also this coming out, and it's brewing somehow, but the need, this moment of recomposition, of epiphany, when our yes or yeses become a no to their no. So capital is a force that say no, you can't do that. Okay, that it closes, that say you got to do it this way, or whatever. And I think we have to consider, really root our political discourse and coming out in a way that sees our yeses as a constituent force. Try to find ways to enlarge as much as possible our constituent powers, and see that as a source of power and transformation, a source of power that says no to their no. Okay, it's like the commoning, that our yes has been really the commoning. And in all, I finish here, but in all the, whenever I hear of a struggle at the micro level, the macro level, what I find out is, the question I'm asking is, okay, what happened before? Someone said is, yesterday, the comrade from the Bristol Radical History Group made the same point, is that when you hear of a struggle, a moment in history, what is hidden behind that is always before a process of commoning, that has happened before, invisible. A community coming together. In Barcelona, just come this example, and I finish this. In Barcelona, for example, there's a struggle in Barceloneta against eviction of communities there, against eviction, against gentrification, and what I've discovered there is that this struggle that we're able now to last for 10 years against the eviction and gentrification. What nobody was asking was the question of where do they come from? How is it possible for that woman to come down once they receive the eviction notice, come down with a megaphone and say, hey, let's start this, let's have an assembly in the church. When you ask the question, how is it possible? It was possible because for the previous 15 years, they were involved in all sorts of community work, having to do with reproduction, having to do with health, school, and all sorts of things. So they were organizing of actual series of yeses, which at that particular moment when they were hit by the state saying out, became a force for a no to their no. Okay, no, you cannot stay in these houses. Well, no to your no. And so that becomes a moment of political recomposition, but based on a strong, power, which was build from below. Anyway, that's the value.